On a Thursday afternoon, my phone rang just 2 weeks before our wedding. I still remember where I was. The kitchen smelled faintly of vanilla from the dozens of cupcakes I'd baked for our final tasting, and the invitation envelopes were still scattered across the dining room table. That call didn't just interrupt my day, it ended my life as I knew it. "Emily," Jake said, his voice flat. Too calm, too practiced. I knew something was wrong before he finished. "I don't think I can do this." I held my breath, but didn't let it out. "Not right away." I pressed the phone harder to my ear, as if I could force the words back into his mouth. "Proceed with what?" I whispered, even though I already knew. "The wedding." He said, I don't think I'm ready. I think I'm ready, but I'm not ready." I stood there, staring at my reflection in the microwave door, my face pale and distorted in the glass. It was surreal, like someone had turned the volume down on the world, and all I could hear was my heart pounding like a drum. We've been together for 6 years. We met in college, crossed the finish line, built a life together in Charleston, South Carolina. We picked the flowers, the venue, the song. His mom personally mailed our save the dates cards. I had a wedding dress in the guest bedroom closet, printed name tags, seating charts, and now, with one phone call, he'd put it all together. I asked him why. Of course I did. Over and over again. Why now? Why 2 weeks ago? But his answers were foggy. "I don't know." He said, "I don't feel good. I think I'll get over it." Off does he feel wrong, like we're an ill-fitting sweater. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stood in the vanilla-scented kitchen, nodding silently, clutching my phone like it was both a lifeline and a weapon. When I finally hung up, I stood there for minutes, maybe hours. The world was still spinning, but I had fallen off its axis. The next day, I told my mother. Her face paled as the coffee cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the tile. She said nothing, just hugged me, like she had done when I had skinned my knee as a child. The whispers started quickly. Friends, extended family, shop assistants. Everyone wanted to know what was going on. Cold Feet One asked me with a sympathetic smile. "Are you cheating?" Another whispered not so quietly behind me. My florist texted me asking if we should postpone or cancel. I couldn't reply. My hands were shaking too much to type. Jake didn't call back. Not that day. Not the next. He disappeared into silence, leaving me to clean up the mess he'd made. I half expected him to show up at the door, flowers in hand, tears in his eyes, saying it was all a misunderstanding. But he didn't. What hurts the most is not the betrayal, but the silence. I canceled everything. Every call, the caterer, the venue, the hotel rooms for guests. Every time I said the words, "There will be no wedding," I felt a part of me fall apart. Part of me still wants to protect him. When people ask, I say things like, "He's not ready," or "We both need more time." I say those lies like they're prayers, hoping that maybe if I soften the blow to others, it will hurt less. But it is not. His mother sent me a box of candles we had picked out together for the ceremony. No note. Just a box, like returning borrowed items after a breakup that was never discussed in person. The box sat in my hallway for days before I threw it away. I didn't leave the house for almost a week. One night, I sat in the bathtub with my dress zipped up around me, soaked and heavy with water and regret. I cried until my ribs ached, until there were no more tears, just silence and a deep, unbearable stillness. But the world doesn't stop for my pain. My job as second-grade teacher started again on Monday. I showed up with a forced smile and blank eyes. The kids didn't know, of course. They hugged me as if nothing had changed. And in a way, their innocence reminded me that life goes on, even when mine seemed to stop. One of my students, Lily, showed me a drawing. It was of a woman in a big dress and a man standing next to her. "That's you and your prince," she said proudly. I smiled. A real smile, or almost. That night, I folded the wedding dress and put it away. I didn't give it away, not yet. But I also didn't want it staring at me like a ghost. Jake's absence was louder than any words he could have said. No flowers, no calls, no explanation other than, I wasn't ready. The man I thought I was going to marry didn't even have the courage to face me. And still, a small part of me whispers, maybe he will come back. I hate that part of me. I started journaling every night, not to heal, just to survive. I didn't cry at the grocery store today. I'd write, "Chris Lauren, what's wrong, Chris? Please talk to me. I'm worried. Chris, we can fix this. I love you." I did not answer. 3 days later, he showed up in my office parking lot. He stood outside my car like a lost child, tears in his eyes, holding that damn bouquet of flowers. "Please," he said, "talk to me." I looked him straight in the eye and said calmly and clearly, "You have chosen. Now I choose too." He stammered. I was so stupid, it didn't make any sense. I panicked. You didn't panic. Chris, you planned it. You lied. You built something behind my back and thought I would never find it. Silent. Then he said something that told me everything I needed to know. But we were so good to each other. You can't throw that away. And I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in days. Look at me. I turned around, got in my car, and drove away. And for the first time in years, I no longer felt like someone's girlfriend. I feel like myself again. I don't need an apology. I need air. The morning after I left Chris, I woke up in my sister's living room, wrapped in a blanket that smelled of lavender and dryer sheets. Sunlight streamed through the half-open curtains, casting a quiet gold on the hardwood floors. For a second, just a second, I forgot what had happened. Then my phone rang, and it all came back. Treachery, the messages, the voice in my head whispered, "He lied for months, and I still love him anyway." 12 missed calls, a string of messages confused, frantic, desperate. "Chris Lauren, please. We need to talk. Chris, give me a chance to explain. Chris, you're not fair. Let me say one thing at least." I turned the phone over, screen facing down. I am not ready to listen to his excuses. I don't want to be reasoned with, especially when I spent years explaining it to him. I spent the rest of the day in silence. My sister, Jenna, tiptoed around me as if I might shatter again if she asked too much. She left the muffins on the counter, made tea without saying a word, and held me with both arms like a lifeline. That evening, I sat on the porch swing, wrapped in an old sweatshirt and drinking wine from a glass, and I breathed. For the first time in a long time, I don't have to pretend I'm okay. No need to protect a man who doesn't protect me. No need to lie for a relationship that I no longer want to maintain. Chris tried calling back that night. I let it ring, then block his number. Not because I hate him, but now I love myself more. The following days were strange, silent, sharp at the edges, but also strangely peaceful. I returned to work on Monday. My colleagues didn't know the details, just that I looked tired and was quieter than usual. I smile when necessary, nod when appropriate. But inside, I'm rebuilding. I started seeing a therapist named Maya, a woman with softer eyes and a firmer voice than you might expect. On our first meeting, I told her everything. The texts, the years, the way I used to withdraw when Chris was away. She listened, no interruption, then say, "You didn't leave because of what he did. You leave because you know you deserve it." I cried when I heard that. Cried more than I had in days. Because it is true. A week later, Chris emailed me, subject line, "A chance to explain. Short body. Too short. I screwed up. I know I did. But you walked away without listening to me. It broke me. Please, just 5 minutes. In person." For a moment, I felt a tug. The old part of me believes that closure will come from conversations, from let him speak. But then I remembered how easily he lied. Betrayal had become natural in his voice. He kissed me the night he kissed someone else. And I realized that I don't need his version of the truth. I have lived my life. A few days later, I ran into him again. No plan, not cinematic. Really. It was Saturday afternoon, and I had just finished therapy. I decided to stop by a small cafe for lunch. It had string lights and too many succulents in mismatched pots. I walked in, ordered a salad, and went back to find a seat. And there he was, Chris, standing in line behind me, wallet in hand, wearing the same blue button-down shirt he'd worn on our first trip to Santa Barbara. His eyes were fixed on me. I could see it right away, the guilt, the hope, and the despair. "Lauren." He sighed, as if saying my name had given him some breathing room. I said nothing. He stepped closer. "Please, I know you don't want to hear me, but I'm asking, not as your ex, as someone who still loves you." People around us sipped coffee, typing on laptops, oblivious to their surroundings. "I'm not here to fight," he continued. I want to explain." I took a breath, then shook his head. "You want to explain to make yourself feel better?" I said. "But I'm better now, and I'm not going to get there by reopening the wound you caused me." He looked as if I had just slapped him. "I was scared," he whispered. "That's not an excuse. But I was panicking. I thought maybe I was missing out. I didn't realize I was walking away from the best thing I've ever had." I looked at him. Not the way I used to. Not with longing, or anger, or confusion. "Just to be clear, I spent years showing up for you," I said. "Through every mood swing, every cold shoulder, every I need space. And when it was your turn to show up for me, you chose someone else." He opened his mouth and closed it. "I'm not bitter," I said softly. "I'm just done." Then I walked past him. He did not follow. He didn't mention my name again. That night, I deleted the screenshots, the messages, video from Tara. Not for forgiveness, but I don't need proof anymore. The truth has set me free. 2 weeks later, I officially moved out of the apartment we used to live in together. Pack what is mine, leave the rest behind. I bought a cheap hardcover notebook and wrote on the first page, "Day 1. Not a day of suffering." But don't stop there. No explanation. Don't be silent just to keep the peace. And every night, I write a sentence. Not a complete diary entry, just a sentence about who I'm becoming. One night, it said, "I'm not crying today." Another night, I smiled as I looked at my reflection. Another, "I don't feel like checking his Instagram." Small but real victories. It takes time. It is not linear, but step by step. I felt like a woman again, not just someone's girlfriend, a complete person, not someone waiting to be chosen. And somewhere, deep in the silence of those healing days, I'm beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, being lonely isn't the worst thing that can happen. Being with the wrong person is wrong. I am not looking for love. I'm just trying to remember how to breathe. It's been 4 months since I left Chris. 4 months of therapy, lunches alone, and Friday nights curled up with a book instead of a broken promise. I'm not healed, not completely, but I'm not empty anymore, either. The sky in San Diego was stubbornly gray that day. I had just finished a long client meeting downtown and needed somewhere quiet, somewhere warm. I took a wrong turn trying to find a coffee shop I'd bookmarked months ago, and ended up in front of a tiny bookstore cafe wedged between a bike shop and a plant nursery. Carter & Co. The sign was hand-painted, a little warped. But the door opened, and the smell of cinnamon and old books drew me in. Inside it has everything I didn't know I needed. Wooden floor, old sofa, mismatched chairs. A cat is taking a nap on the windowsill. Soft jazz music played in the background. Books were everywhere stacked on shelves, spilling out onto tables, and behind the counter, a man in a flannel shirt was carefully patching together a torn book cover as if it were a sacred object. He looked up, warm eyes. His smile meant nothing. "Welcome in," he said. "You look like you need tea more than coffee." I blinked. That obvious, he grinned. "Absolutely." I smiled, really. For the first time all day. His name is Miles. He is the owner. Was a high school English teacher before leaving to open a shop with his brother. Now lives in Oregon. I ordered a cup of chai milk tea and watched while the tea steeped. Each shelf has small handwritten notes from the staff. This made me cry in the best way. For when you're tired of pretending you're okay, I picked up a book about starting over and sat down in the armchair in the corner. When I looked up, an hour had passed. As I brought the book to the counter, Miles tilted his head. "You're not from around here, are you?" "No," I said. "Wrong turn? Or maybe it is," he replied. He said it calmly, but it fell into some deep place. "I'll be back next week." And then the week after that? Not about Miles, not yet. It was the space, the peace, the way no one expected anything from me there. Some days, I just sit and read. Other days, I talk to Miles about everything from poetry to terrible airplane snacks. He was never curious, never asked about my past, but he always remembers my order. And one time, when I looked tired, he put a bookmark in my book, on which was written, "You are doing better than you think." One rainy Thursday, I stayed until closing. Miles was folding chairs when I asked, "Can I ask you something?" He nodded. "Have you ever had to start over? And not hate yourself for not seeing it coming sooner?" He didn't ask what I meant. Just walked up, sat across from me and said, "I was in a loveless marriage for 3 years because I thought it was noble to keep trying." I exhale. We talked for hours about the lies we believed, the burden of pretending, the fear of being alone, and the peace we never knew was waiting on the other side of letting go. After that night, something changed. Not in a dramatic way, like in the movies, but in the quiet comfort of familiarity. Miles and I didn't start dating, not officially. There were no grand gestures or sudden confessions, just two people who have loved and lost, choosing to exist in the same quiet space, each time talking. He will recommend a book. I will bring him cookies. I would tell him about a childhood memory. He would share a line from a poem that he remembered from college, and slowly, gently, I began to heal, not because of him, but because he didn't try to fix me. He just stood there while I tried to get up again. One afternoon, he was rearranging the display in front of him. I stopped by after work, still wearing my jacket and heels. He looked up and smiled as usual, as if seeing me was the best part of his day. You look tired, he said. Or perhaps thoughtful, both, I admitted, curling up in the window seat. He handed me a cup of tea without even asking. Just knew. Then he sat down next to me and took out a book. You know, he said, turning to a marked page. There's a line here that I think you'll like. He cleared his throat and read aloud. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone hold the broken pieces, not to glue them back together, but just to keep you company while you rebuild. I said nothing. Unnecessary. He closed the book and smiled without looking at me. And at that moment, I realized I haven't thought about Chris all day. Not once. Not his name, not his face, not his voice. And that feeling was like freedom. That weekend, I told Maya, my therapist, about Miles. She asked, Do you think you're in love with him? I shook my head slowly. No, I said. I think I'm remembering what it felt like to be safe, and that's better than falling. I didn't tell Miles how much he meant to me. Not then. I don't need to do that. Because some relationships aren't built on declarations or kisses under the stars. Some are built in silence, in regular cups of tea. When you remember your story without having to write it down. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was not moving forward anymore. I feel like I've finally arrived. He returned with tears and promises, but I moved on in peace. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon in San Diego. Miles and I had just finished a small poetry reading at the bookstore, a monthly event we started to let locals share their work. The place smelled of espresso and vanilla candles, and laughter still hung in the air. I was collecting used cups when the doorbell rang. I didn't look up right away, but I feel it. The air has changed, like a song played out of key. Then I heard his voice. Lauren. I was speechless. I slowly turned around, and there he was. Chris Moore there. He looks older, more tired. His hair is a little thinner. His smile is a little strained. But he's still him, the man who broke my heart with just one text message. I am now standing in a space that I consider sacred. Miles looked up from the counter. Your friend, I cleared my throat. An old chapter. Chris stepped forward. Can we talk? I glanced at Miles. He didn't flinch, just gave me a small nod, a silence. That was his choice. I took a breath. Back, 5 minutes. We stepped into the alley behind the store, quiet, shady, filled with the smell of books and pavement. I crossed my arms. What do you want? Chris, I tried to find you. He said. I didn't know where you moved. I thought you blocked me and you had every right to. I wait. I screwed up. He continued. God. I screwed up so bad. And it wasn't until I lost you that I realized how much I took things for granted. I went to therapy. I got clean. I never dated anyone. I thought about you. Every day. I blinked. That's not the reason. I know, he said, but maybe so. He reached into his pocket and took out a box. I stared at it. I felt my stomach churn. Not out of desire, but out of disbelief. Are you kidding me? He opened it. A ring. Not what I returned. A new one. Bigger. Brighter. Like a remake. I want you back. Lauren, he said. This time for real. I'm ready. I'm not afraid anymore. I laugh. I actually laughed. You think I've been waiting? He looked stunned. I hope. No? Chris, I hope you haven't changed. That you're still stuck in that moment, broken and waiting for me to fix it. I stepped closer. But I changed. I built myself from scratch. And you are not part of that new foundation. He swallowed. Are you seeing someone? I did not respond verbally. I just smiled, softly, proudly, completely. Chris looked at me as if he finally saw me. Too late. Chris held the ring as if it were an apology, but it is not. It was a symbol of something I no longer wanted. A future built on patchwork guilt and delayed realization. Lauren, he said, you are the only woman who really sees me. I nodded. Maybe, but you can't see me. His shoulders slumped. I love you, he said softly. I know. I replied. But love isn't always enough. Not when it's late. Not when it leaves scars. He looked like he wanted to argue back. To beg, saying all the things he should have said when I still wanted to listen. But I'm done. You left while I was still standing next to you? I said, and now that I'm gone, do you think you can come back? He said nothing. I wish you well. I whispered. I really do. But this version of me, she doesn't back down. He blinked rapidly, eyes glazed, jaw clenched. I'm happy now, Chris, I added. Really happy. And not because of anyone else, because I finally chose myself. With that, I turned and walked into the bookstore, into the soft lighting, the laughter, the smell of paper and cinnamon. Into my life, Miles glanced at me as I walked in. He didn't ask anything, just handed me a cup of tea and touched my wrist, calm, present. I sat by the window, watching the street outside. Chris is gone, and for the first time, it didn't hurt anymore. It doesn't even hurt. It feels like it's over. That evening, I sat with Miles as he rearranged his poetry shelf. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Finally, I said, he came to ask for another chance. Miles was unfazed, and I told him I was leaving. He smiled. Good. We don't say, I love you. We do not define who we are. But in the silence, I knew that this is not a recovery. It was not a rescue. It is a return to oneself, to peace, to something real. He asked for another chance. Instead, I gave it to myself. It's been 2 weeks since Chris showed up with that ring. It's been 2 weeks since I said goodbye to him for the second and last time. I have not heard from him since. No text, no email, no dramatic gestures, and that silence feels like a win. Not because of him, but more than the version of myself who once begged him to stay. Miles and I didn't talk much about what happened. He trusts me. He knew that when I chose him. It wasn't because of residual pain, but because of clarity. One quiet evening, we were painting the spare room in his house, a soft, dusty green. We haven't labeled it yet. Not an office, nor a living room. just a room that feels like starting over. You know, Miles said, dipping the roller into the tray. You've changed. I looked over. Changed how he smiled. The first time I met you, you acted like you were apologizing for taking my seat. I sighed. I felt that way. What about now I stopped? Now I feel like I belong in that room without having to prove why. He walked over and dabbed some paint on my nose. I smiled and pushed him away. And in that moment, in that unlabeled room, I knew I went home. That weekend. I opened the old box, the one I hid in my sister's garage. It holds the past photo of me and Chris, the letters he wrote, our trip itinerary to Sedona. I even threw away the ring box I returned that night. I sat on the floor, the warm afternoon sun on my back, and sorted through my memories. I don't cry. I am not angry. I just smiled, both sad and happy, because now I can look at those pieces and see how far I've come. I don't need to burn them or frame them. I just respect them and let them go. I picked up a white card. Write a letter, not with Chris, but with the version of me that used to love him. You did your best. You believe in love. You have persevered longer than you should have, not because you are weak, but because your heart is loyal. But now you don't have to wait any longer. You don't need closure from someone who never told you the truth. You are the end, and you are the beginning. I folded the paper, put it in an envelope, write Lauren, then on the front, and put it in the back of my bookshelf, not to hide, but to remind myself I survived the accident. And now, I am the one rebuilding the coast. That evening, I sat on the porch with Miles. The sun set behind the hills, spreading a soft orange hue across the sky. He poured me a glass of wine, handed it to me, and clinked glasses with me. With a new coat of paint and old truths, he smiled. For peace, I added. We need not say more. The atmosphere between us had changed in recent weeks, not of urgency, but of certainty. Like two people walking side by side, not racing forward or holding each other back. Then, as we were cleaning up the brushes, I stopped and asked, "Do you think we'll become different people after we break up?" Miles leaned against the doorframe. "No," he said. "I think we become who we always wanted to be. When the noise dies down, that sentence still stays with me." A week later, a letter arrived. No reply address, but I know the handwriting. Chris. I slowly opened it. Not long. Lauren, I realize that the ending is not what you want. It's what you give. I do not expect forgiveness, but I hope you know that I'm so grateful that you ever loved me, even when I didn't deserve it. I hope you are happy. See? I read it once, and then again, and then I smiled. Because the truth is, I don't need that letter. I don't need him to admit the damage or realize the burden I have to carry. But do you understand? It feels like seeing the last page of a book I left on the shelf. Final stage. And now, I can start writing something new. That weekend, Miles and I hosted a small dinner at the bookstore. Just a few friends, string lights overhead, simple food, good music. We raised our glasses to community, to poetry, to second chances. At some point, I walked away, stood in the doorway, and watched them laugh and talk. And I realized that I built something again. It's not a far-fetched story, not rescue, but a real life, solid and beautiful. Not perfect, but mine. A guest asked how Miles and I met. I smiled. Wrong turn, I said, but in the right direction. That night, as we locked the door and walked home, I held his hand. You know, I said, for a long time, I thought I needed to end it all. What about now, he asked. I looked up at him. Now I know. I don't need closure. I just need to get back to myself. He left with lies, but I came away with the truth, and that makes the difference. Sometimes the person who hurts us is not the person we need to close the pain with. Sometimes the end is the moment we stop explaining, stop pursuing, and simply choose peace over proving a point. Lauren's story isn't about revenge. It's about coming back to yourself piece by piece, breath by breath. It's about leaving someone only to want her back after she heals, and walk towards someone who loves her exactly as she is, no need to fix her. If you've ever waited for an apology, if you've ever held your breath waiting for an explanation that never came, let this be your reminder. You do not need permission to move forward. You just need to have the courage to choose yourself. If this story touched you, please like this video. It will help other women find this message too. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Have you ever left without finding something better? And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss next week's story. She didn't know I was recording until I played it in court. Because sometimes, the truth does not scream. Just press play button.